I think the phrase "seemed to come from nowhere" gets thrown around far too often, but to me, it actually fits Jenna Ortega surprisingly well. Maybe I'm wrong, but when I look at her career trajectory, it feels less like a slow burn and more like a sharp 5-year ascendancy that's managed to outshine almost everyone else in her generation. I didn't realize just how much groundwork she'd already put in as a child actor. She did plenty of early work, including a stint on the Disney Channel, but it wasn't until she began transitioning into darker, more adult roles that people really started paying attention. For me, that shift became noticeable around 2020, when she appeared in Netflix's psychological thriller, You and the horror sequel, The Babysitter, Killer Queen. Those roles felt like a line in the sand. This was no longer a former child star trying to find her footing, but an actor actively redefining herself. The following year is where I think things truly clicked. Her performance in The Fallout, a harrowing school shooting drama, stood out in a way that was impossible to ignore. She played a traumatized student survivor with such restraint and vulnerability that it earned her serious critical acclaim. Watching that film, I remember thinking she wasn't just good. She was frighteningly good. Then came 2022, Mayim, which felt like Ortega's full-blown takeover, especially within the horror genre. She appeared in Scream, the 5th installment of the franchise, and then in T. West's X, a brilliant retro gorefest that became something of a showcase for Mia Goth, but also quietly highlighted just how much raw talent Ortega had. To me, X wasn't just another slasher. It was proof that Ortega could hold her own in bold, auteur-driven projects. That same year, she doubled down on Chaos with Studio 666, the Foo Fighters' gloriously silly horror comedy, and American Carnage. By that point, I was already seeing her described as the new it girl of horror, a label she didn't shy away from. Instead, she leaned into it completely, embracing a more gothic image by signing on as the lead in Netflix's Addams Family spin-off, Wednesday. The success of Wednesday was nothing short of spectacular. It became the most-watched Netflix show in history, featured an ensemble cast packed with acting legends, and had Tim Burton directing half of its 8 episodes. To me, it felt like a lavish, carefully crafted production filled with genuinely memorable characters. When Season 2 arrived last year, it proved just as popular, reinforcing that this wasn't a one-season phenomenon. Ortega herself picked up Golden Globe and Emmy nominations, and honestly, it would have been completely understandable if she'd chosen the safest possible next step. But that's where I think she became even more interesting. Instead of playing it safe, she leaned into the unexpected. She chose Miller's Girl in 2024, a film that never seemed destined to be a box office hit. Co-starring Martin Freeman, it explored the unsettling dynamic between a college student and her creative writing professor, a story that was controversial almost immediately due to the 34-year age gap between the characters. Certain scenes circulated online and sparked widespread discomfort, but Ortega seemed distinctly unbothered. I was struck by her response to the backlash. She told Vanity Fair that the film wasn't meant to be comfortable, or pleasant, or neatly resolved, that sometimes art is supposed to feel awful because life itself can be deeply messed up. Whether you agree with that or not, I think it says a lot about how she approaches her work. As most people probably expected, Miller's Girl wasn't a major success, though it did make a small profit. Critics were divided, and Martin Freeman later clarified that the film was in no way an endorsement of the relationship at its center. Still, if anyone thought the controversy would slow Ortega down, they were clearly mistaken. She moved on almost immediately, appearing later that same year in the long-awaited Beetlejuice sequel. And now she has an even more impressive slate ahead of her. To me, it feels like she's only just getting started. Upcoming projects include Taika Waititi's sci-fi adaptation, Clara and the Sun, and J.J. Abrams' big-budget science fiction film, The Great Beyond, set for a theatrical release in November. Whether you see her rise as carefully calculated or instinctively fearless, I think Jenna Ortega's career so far reads like a deliberate refusal to be boxed in, and that, more than anything, is what makes her fascinating to watch.